Hey everyone, Cursed Deck Builder here, and we are looking at a Karazikar, the Tyrant Goad deck. This deck comes to us from Brainstew0711, who says this is their deck and they're open to any suggestions. So let's take a look and see what's going on in this deck and what Goad decks are like and what does this Goad deck need. As always, the deck list is in the video description below. I highly recommend that you open it up, take a look, and see what kind of things you notice, and if you and I agree, or if you have changes I haven't thought of. So what does our commander do? Our commander is a 5-mana 5/5 that says whenever you attack a player, you tap down one of their creatures and you goad it. And then whenever an opponent attacks one of your opponents, you and that attacking player draw a card and lose 1 life. Already, I am familiar with this kind of political commander. I play Brina. Brina works very, very similarly, where your opponents, where you gain stuff for gain triggers when your opponents attack each other. However, Brina has many more hoops to jump through, whereas Karazikar just generally gets you cards, you and your opponent cards, every time they attack one of the opponents. Not per creature, just per attack. So the dream is that they draw 2 cards and you draw 2 cards, which is not bad. 5/5 is not bad either. Now, let's look at the curve. Curve is real nice. There is a 9-mana spell. I'd like to know what it is. Blasphemous Act, that's fine. And 1 7-mana spell, Captive Audience. But the rest of the curve is really, really nice. I look immediately into artifacts. I see what I would consider to be a nice amount of mana rocks. Big fan of that. Wishclaw Talisman works really well in a political deck like this. Coveted Jewel, I'm medium on. I think the opportunity cost for losing it is way too high. You are a lot of political cards that can benefit your opponents. You want it to benefit them a little less than it would benefit you, I guess is what I want to say. Coveted Jewel is a massive benefit. It's draw 3, gain 3 additional mana. Any opponent that gets this, I think you've given them too much power. I think the only way I like Coveted Jewel is in decks that can immediately sacrifice it. Because 6 mana to draw 3 and then tap for 3 colors, I really don't mind that. I think that's particularly strong. All right, so let's take a look at the rest of the deck. We have a lot of goad effects. A lot of goad effects. I wish I could just search per goad, but there is a lot. See, Vengeful Ancestor. We've got a lot across the board. I do I do like this. I am a fan of this. I think in Goad decks, you need a critical mass of Goad because if it's not happening, your deck isn't working. Now, I have a friend at my local game store who plays Cardur Goad, and granted, I've only seen 1 game with it, and it went particularly poorly. But I do like this ability. I do like forcing the Goad to all of your opponents to deal with while you get in with free attacks and push yourself ahead. What I think I would like a few more ways to give people creatures that you can goad. By that I mean, I think, I don't know if that's picking up on my mic, but there's some noise outside. Survivor create. So Varchild, as the Betrayer, and also Varchild's War Riders, both create survivor tokens, and both of these tokens are given to your opponents. The War Riders is really straightforward. It's a 3/4 trample for 2, which is more of a one-on-one kind of stat line, but is respectable nonetheless. It has Rampage 1. Pretty sure Rampage, what that does is for every creature that blocks it, it gets a +1/+1. Yes, after the first one. So in theory, This can never be blocked by survivors profitably, so that's why it has that. But then there's a cumulative upkeep. This is the important part. Every turn you put a counter on this, and then you give a player, an opponent, that many 1/1 survivors. So first turn cycle, it does nothing. It gets back to you. You give someone a 1/1. Next turn cycle, it gets back to you. You give a two. You give two 1/1s, etc., etc. This gets out of hand pretty fast if you can play the War Riders early. But the main thing it does is that it gives your opponents things that can attack each other. You want them to have the means. You want them to do something with it, right? If you're goading nothing, you're getting nowhere. Varchild herself is particularly powerful because um, I'm assuming a gender here. Let's say they're really good here because one, they stop these survivor creature tokens from blocking, which works really well in Goad, so you can't hold them up as defense, and stops them from attacking you, which is fine. That's less important because you're goading them anyways. But the way Varchild produces survivor tokens is by dealing damage to opponents. Now, if you were using them as your commander, I think you'd get a little further because you could equip them with equipment and boost their power. But for you, you're just attacking in for three, giving them three creatures that cannot block or attack you. So to an extent, they're already sort of goaded. But once you get a nice big goad effect across the board, all of them are being sent to all of your opponents, which is great. Then the clause is that when Varchild leaves battlefield, you gain control of all of those survivor tokens. I don't expect there to be many because they will be attacking into your opponents constantly, but hey, why not? I don't think it's much of a problem. The other one that you often see is the Acroan horse. I don't think you're playing the Acroan horse. Let me just check. No. A Crowan horse is a fine ability as well. Whoever has the horse, each time it's their upkeep, all their opponents gain a 1/1. I like it. It's takes a few turns to really get going. It does create three tokens, one of which you get every time. I'm a fan of that. It's funny that actually in a deck like this, you'd rather be the one to keep the horse and I'm sure there's ways to do that. You could use threatened effects or homeward path to get the horse back. You want the horse because otherwise your opponents will block with the horse and let it die. And you want your opponents to have the creatures, not you, because you want them to be goaded and attacking each other. But still, a fun card, a very fun card that I love to play. Now, let me see if there's any other effects. I already see that you're playing Hunted Horror. I think there's a Hunted Dragon, right? Which is a slower rate. Yes, you're not playing the dragon. It gives 3/2/2 white night creatures. I think that's fine. I think I would play this as well. Same idea. You're giving someone 3/2/2s. It's the same. You're introducing 12 power to the board. Whoever you give the tokens to, I can guarantee they're going to be your friend, especially if you put it on the table saying, "Hey, I'm going to play Hunted Dragon. Who would like the tokens?" And if no one bites, it doesn't matter. You'll goad them anyways. They'll go somewhere else. And in the meantime, you'll be attacking with a 6/6. So I would also like to see Hunted Dragon in here. And then I'm trying to think of any others. Create opponent control. I don't know how many we're going to get of these because it is a little tricky to find this exact ability. I should also put us into our colors. It is a bit difficult to put permanents into your opponent's control, especially creatures for them to attack with. Mhm. Are you playing the Spy Master? You are not. Perhaps another choice is Goblin Spy Master, who not only creates a 1/1 goblin, but it's also a goad effect in a way because it forces those creatures to attack all the time. Granted, it's not a full goad because they can attack you, but it does give them the means to attack each other, and it does give them creatures to attack with. So I think that's pretty neat. Looking for anything else here. Mhm. Kind of a difficult ability to find. Slaughter Specialist, I don't love it. The person I said that was playing Cardur was playing it. I think it's fine. I think it's just because it only triggers once is the main reason I don't like it. And Slaughter Specialist does grow incredibly fast, but does it lacks evasion in a meaningful way, and because of that, it's hard for them to get it. Now, granted, if you get the goad going, you might not notice this problem as much. You can grow her into like, I don't know, a 10-10 and get one good hit in is more than enough. So potentially, I don't know, I don't maybe it's not as bad as I'm thinking it is, but I think I think I'm a little medium on that one. Now, one that is here that isn't here, let's say each player creates 5 mana in red. I believe it's Rite of something. Rite of the Raging Storm. So, creatures can't attack, named Lightning Rager can't attack you or planeswalkers you control. Real nice. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player creates a 5/1 Lightning Rager with haste, trample, and it dies at the end of the turn. Now, this is really nice. I think this is a card that's a little slept on lower to medium power decks because this is one of those cards that it's really hard to measure the floor to ceiling, test, right? Because there's a lot of moving parts. The first thing is this only triggers on upkeep. So after you play this, it has to make it to the next upkeep. That being said, it's not your upkeep, it's your opponent's upkeep. So the odds of this working are really, really good. The second thing is the likelihood of your opponents attacking each other. It does require for your opponents to have profitable attacks. And that's a bit tricky because, how do I put this? That's a bit tricky because they might have attacks that aren't ideal. For example, if one of your opponents has a 6/6 with lifelink, then this becomes a weaker card. It starts getting sent into random directions that aren't as great. If the board is really clogged, your opponents are just sending them into nothing. But I would consider that to be more of a rare situation. And I think most of the time, your opponent will want to attack with a 5/1 haste trample, and they'll be happy to do so. They'll have a target, there'll be a good attack, and then immediately that opponent has incentive on what direction to send the lightning rager at. I've seen situations where there's 3 players, the first trigger happens, and one of your opponents goes, "Hey, if you attack me with the rager, I'm going to attack you with the rager," which is funny because if they're second in line, that's a threat. However, if they're third in line, the other 2 players will just say, "Okay, so we'll both attack you with our rager." There's no loss no loss there. I think that's a lot of fun. Getting your opponents to argue amongst themselves over your political cards is exactly where you want to be in a deck like this. So I would heavily, heavily recommend this. Now, beyond that, I think one more thought is War's Toll. So War's Toll says whenever an opponent taps for mana, they have to tap all their lands, which it means they have to tap out completely. And whenever they attack with a creature, whenever a creature an opponent controls attacks, all creatures attack. Now, what's important, okay, how do I put this? There is a bit of a problem with Goad that's not always described. Now, it doesn't happen a lot, but it's important to note. Let me see if any of these describe how Goad works. Until your next turn, those creatures attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. If able is a really important piece of text. And so if your opponent has, for example, Ghostly Prison, Goad becomes a bit of a problem. So let's say I've got a goaded creature. Let's say I have a ton of goaded creatures, and I decide to try to attack my opponent with Ghostly Prison. Now I can't actually do that unless I pay 2. So that trigger comes up and asks me, do you want to pay 2? I don't have to pay that 2. I can reject paying that 2, and then that creature can no longer attack, and I've gotten around Goad. This is this is a bit of a problem. This isn't a huge problem. Players need to know that, and players need to work together to nullify Goad that way. So this is an aspect of Goad to kind of be aware of, which is why I believe you are playing Feed the Swarm. Feed the Swarm is great to kind of stop these kind of effects. However, War's Toll is not one of these kinds of cards. It doesn't need to check, you know, can these creatures attack? It just says if a creature attacked. It's that's just the check. So Goad works really well with this. So they attack with one creature because they have to. They now have to attack with all creatures. I like this on the same level of things like Disrupt Decorum and Kardur, because it reads as if you goad one, goad them all. So it's repeatable and it stays on the battlefield, and you don't have to generally worry about having another disrupt decorum after that. Now, it doesn't affect you, which is really really good. And blue mages will never talk to you again. You use this once, and all of a sudden they have to tap out every turn. They will not be your friend. Please, please, if you're not already and you're not, play this card. Now, after that, I'm going to look a bit for cuts. I'm going to say the cards that I'm looking, they're a bit weaker. Gifted Aetherborn feels particularly weak here. I understand it can block anything with Death Touch, but if you want that ability, just use Typhoid Rats or another 1 mana version of it. But you don't want that ability. Why do you need to destroy creatures that attack you? They're not going to attack you anyways. You might as well let your opponents do that for you. Likewise, Nether Trader feels a little strange here. I recognize that it'll always get through, and that's probably why it's there, and that it can survive through being destroyed. But Nether Trader is both a mana sink, as in that it requires mana open for it to work, and also just kind of a subpar card. Like, I get that Bloodghast is much more expensive, but Nether Trader is not where you want to be. I don't see it. I think it's a fine card in certain strategies, but here you're just poking your opponents for 1. Yeah, you're probably drawing. Oh no, you don't. It's not. You see, I'm confusing it with Brina. No, you don't even draw if you attack. Yeah, all right. I guess it does allow you to goad. It allows the first part of the text. So you attack it so you can goad someone, but once again, I'm pretty sure you have enough goaders. You should be able to make a profitable attack without having a +1, sorry, a unblockable creature. That's my opinion. Maybe it's a bit naive, depending on board states. But I would rather, for example, if the goal is to have an unblockable creature or a creature you can attack with without worrying, the Rager, was it? Right of the Raging Storm does that much better, I think. Let's look down a little. I don't really like this. I keep reading this and I keep not liking it. It's it's a 5/8 that can only attack on attack that can only attack players that have attacked you. These players are not going to attack you. You're goading them, right? So I don't like that. And in a similar way, I don't like Kazul. Kazul is a really fun ghostly prison effect, but it does very little when you're goading your opponents. You're gonna play Kazul, your opponent's creatures are gonna be, goaded, let's say from Instigator Ant or something, and then what? They're not gonna attack you. They literally can't. So okay, Kazul is just a 5/4 for 5 that you've played, and when it comes to be the point they need to attack you, or let's be honest, are able to attack you, if they need to, you know, they'll pay. They'll probably just go tall and fly over you. Like Kazul is just not really a good deterrent and is often doesn't work with your deck. I think that's fine. I don't mind that. I had to read that. I haven't seen that before. First strike landfall. Whenever you land, go to each creature target creature. Yep, love that. Very very strong. Once again, a repeatable goad is great. All right. Life of the party is a way to for your opponents to create. Okay, cool. I didn't know about this. Okay, interesting. That's another one. So looking at those, looking around, I don't like Bedevil. You may have heard this before. I don't like Bedevil. I don't think it's strong. You could play Dreadbore over it. This deck will hold up some mana, but not as much mana. Stinging Study here is good. I like that it's a 5 mana instant draw five, so I have no problem with that. Inspired Tinkering is fine. The rest I think is fine. I think the rest of the deck is particularly strong. I would just make a few changes. Right. Captive Audience is another card that I would consider cutting. It's just too much mana. It is just too much mana. I really like it. Don't get me wrong, but you are not cheating it into play, and therefore you have to pay 7 mana, and then it has to get to their upkeep. They have to not counter it. They have to not disenchant it. They have to not beast within it. It's a lot to ask for. And I recognize that the real tasty one is the last one where everyone creates 5/2/2s except for that player. But it's just not in this deck. This is just not the deck you want it to. If you were playing the Mario Enchantment Reanimator, maybe I would be on your side, but this is too much, I think. It's a fun card, but it's going to be really hard for you to get out. And you're already doing so much. You're already playing so much to the board. You have so many really powerful plays. Think of the turns where if you had the choice between Captive Audience and Disrupt Decorum, which one do you play? And I think the answer is Disrupt Decorum every time. If you've been doing what you've wanted to be doing and you've created a board for both you and your opponents, and you need to create some chaos to benefit from it, you're not playing Captivate Audience. You're playing Disrupt Decorum. Those are the things that come to mind. I think once again the rest of the deck looks really solid. I think you could play a few more non-basics. This is a high amount of basics, but I recognize there is a budget concern when it comes to things like that. But otherwise, I do really like the deck. I like how it's put together. I would really like to see how this keeps going. I hope the things I've said have been useful and in the direction you're thinking of. I know you were asking for general advice, and I hope I've given it to you. I think this deck can just be powered up in the veins of a Goad deck by just giving your opponents things to attack each other with. Give them something to fight over, right? And don't make it don't make it the coveted jewel. The Monarch will do just fine, or the Initiative if you want to grab an initiative card, that'll do just fine. But because of the level of Goad, I don't even think you need to give them something to fight over. I think you need to give them something to fight with. All right, if you have another draft of this deck you'd like me to take a look at, or would you like me to take a look at any other deck, please see the form in the video description. You can fill it out, and I can make a video assisting that deck to be whatever you need it to be. In addition, if you can hit the like button, the comment button, the subscribe button, and any other YouTube button, that would be very, very, very helpful for us. This is a new channel, and getting it off the ground is always difficult, and I really, really appreciate the support I've seen so far, and we can get a little further day by day with just little things like that. So thank you very much. I'm excited to see another draft of this, and good luck.